Hello everyone and welcome to your show Around Kuwait. This is your host Abdulaziz Darwish. Usual in our show, we're showcasing about the latest events happening in our lovely country state of Kuwait. And sometimes we have a distinguished guest who are gonna join us in our show to talk about different perspective and different major. Before we start, I would like to greet our working crew and also my colleague Fajr. Hello Fajr, and happy to see you today.
Hello Abdulaziz, it's lovely to see you. And like you said, we're always highlighting what's happening, the latest in Kuwait and around Kuwait. And sometimes we have an esteemed guest with us here in the studio. And today we have the privilege of hosting our esteemed guest, Dr. Mohammed Naqi, an assistant professor in the geology department at Kuwait University. Of course, he will be sharing with us a wealth of knowledge and experience in the field itself.
And also, before we're going to talk more about our guest, are you a big fan of geology?
Yes, I am a big fan of geology, and I like to understand how geologists think and how they work, because I really feel it shapes them when it comes to who they are as characters.
So characters today we are very interesting too. And please welcome everyone, our guest today in the studio, Dr. Mohammed Naqi. He's already assistant professor in the Kuwait University Department of Science. Hello, doctor, and welcome to our show Around Kuwait.
Hi. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you. Pleasure is mine.
You're most welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. In the beginning, me and also my colleague Fajr will talk about the character. Dr. Mohammed Naqi, I know that geology also major is different perspective. When you mention about geology, for sure it's the science of Earth.
Right.
About the levels, about too many things. What made you interested to go into geology, doctor?
Well, at the beginning, let me tell you a little bit about geology. Like, people will perceive geology as identifying different type of rocks, minerals, and this is it. But geology is way more than only identifying different rocks or memorizing the different type of rocks. What really amazes me about geology is you have to think in the processes themselves.
Processes?
Yes, you have to put not only the 3-dimension, but rather you have to add the 4-dimension as well, which is time. Because what we are seeing now in geology, it's a product of time as well, not only wind or water or like the different type processes. So this is always amazes me whenever I read about it, whenever I write about it, or even when I discuss it and teach it to my students. So
in what sense does it amaze you? Like you said, it always amazes you.
It's the perspective of having everything at the same time. Like, you always need to remind yourself that these always happen together. You cannot look at it, because geology, we are talking about millions of years time scale, but everything we live in, it's on a day or a few seconds or a few hours. So as a human, it's very hard for us to understand everything's happening in 3D, in 4D.
So it's hard to grasp that idea.
Of course, yes. And this is what makes geology complicated yet interesting.
So that we are very curious to know more, because you already mentioned about the rocks. So in your point of view, doctor, because you share about your interest and the learning how to be looking deep into the rocks. So how would, in your point of view, describe the local geology reflect the region? I know, like we can say the geographical impact of the region from.
You mean like within Kuwait?
Yes.
And reflecting this on a bigger scale?
Bigger area, yes.
Of course. So geology does not really respect political borders. Geology goes way beyond the borders. It's geology what really, like, even if you look now on the different state, like the borders between them, even Kuwait, we are bordered by geological features. Like in the west of Kuwait, the border between Kuwait and Iraq is a valley, which we call it Wadi Hafr al-Batin, or Hafr al-Batin Wadi. So we are dictated by geology, whether we like it or not. So looking at the geology in Kuwait, we are definitely impacted by what happened in Iran. So let's say between 30 to 25 million years ago, a collision started to happen between the Iranian plate and the Arabian plate. And the reflect of this, now we see it in Kuwait. Actually, we are living on it with all the huge amount of oil and gas we have. It's due to that collision. That collision is like a carpet. When you have a carpet and you slide that carpet, you will form a series of anticlines, and these are the one that keeping all the oil and gas in the subsurface.
And also, Fajr, we are curious when he mentioned something like millions and millions years ago between Iran and Kuwait, the collision of the rocks. So maybe there is a new research and also discovery.
And
Also.
how these collisions could have created challenges for you, or not necessarily always opportunities, but also at times opportunities like you discussed. But can you elaborate for us on more recent discoveries or findings that have significant implications?
So it's really nice the way you put it. So geology is about rocks. So we have older rocks deposited first, and then whatever comes on top, we are going in a younger and younger sense of time. But then it's not only that, but rather you also need to add the movement of the crust, which is the outer layer of planet Earth. So when this moves as well, that's gonna add complexity to the formations, the different type of rocks. So this is gonna add a different perspective or another dimension that you need to think about it. So we do have even though Kuwait looks very flat,
Yes.
and it's almost desert everywhere,
Yes.
but we do have some exposures north of Kuwait. Like if you go north of Kuwait Bay, you have a very beautiful area, we call it Jal Azur. It's a type of escarpment or a ridge that extends from all the way from North Jahra to Sabiya. So it's about like 60, 70 kilometer inlet.
Yes.
So this exposure is about 30 to 40 meter above
The surface.
about the surface. Mainly, most of the geologists, they go there to study the geology. So this profound, amazing geological feature is affected by what happened back in the collision in Iran.
And also, Dr. Mohammed Nati, when he mentioned about the new discovery, we are very curious to know about now the environmental concerns. This is what you call about the rocks and what's happening. And even you mentioned, even it's a surface area, but we have certain locations with different perspective. What about the environmental concerns about the geology? I know geology is you're studying the rocks, you're studying the surface. What about environmental, doctor?
So, like the term geology, I don't like to use it that often nowadays, because geology is not only a geologist, we call it now a geosciences.
Geosciences.
So it's everything related to Earth.
Earth.
So environment is part of it, marine could be also part of it. Coastal processes, coastal environments are also included in geology. So we are interested in the environmental challenges, yet environment by itself, it's a multidisciplinary type of science. Chemists, they work in environment, physicists, biologists, all of them. So what really concerns us as a geologist in the environment is, for example, like where do we take the daily garbage or trash we have? So we go and we dump them. So now dumping sites, we need to be aware geologically, how do they form geologically? Because if this area is very close to a water table, let's say, which is a groundwater, and then you have this area dumped with all these different type of trash, and then you dump it, some of these trash might leak to the water table, and the water table is linked to agricultural. We have the different type of rocks as well.
And the effects on the environment also, because like you said, it's a geoscience now.
Exactly.
So everyone is looking into different ways and being sustainable and understanding where these wastes go, like the example you gave us. But I also like to understand, how do you ensure that your students are participating and are very much inspired by these teachings? Is it by making the subjects more available, more interesting to them? If you could give us a better understanding to this.
So first of all, Kuwait University, they established a program for environmental sciences, and this started back in, I think, 10, 12 years ago. So this is the first action, the big action Kuwait University took, yeah. And then the other thing is putting different type of classes or topics within that the major sheet itself. So And as a professors like me and my colleague in the department, we always focus on the extracurriculum activities.
Okay.
Like, for example, field trips, for example, lectures, doing competitions regarding environment.
And does it spark their interest?
Of course, yeah.
Good engagement with the students?
Yeah, of course. Actually, next Saturday, students are going to one of the beaches in Kuwait to do cleaning campaign, yes, cleaning campaign for one of the beaches in Kuwait. They love it, and I think they will raise their own awareness. And once you were an individual within a family, then you are affecting the family, and then which is the building block of a society.
So it's a good engagement with the students, like to make it more entertainment, not just the studying. You have to do like a tour inspection. You like do like some challenges, competition for them, research also.
Definitely, yeah. Well, personally, I don't do research in environmental. This is not in my field, but my colleagues are doing a great job in regard to that, yes.
And also we are very proud for the efforts for the Kuwait University, even the professors, how to engaging with the students. And I notice even they are also how they are engaging the students for the subjects. Even maybe they have some technologies there also.
And it's taking the traditional learning tools from just being theories to actually practicing what they're learning in the classrooms or auditoriums. And of course, now we see how technology is driving the world and how it's playing a very significant role in changing a number of majors and studies, whether it be geology itself or any other major. Can you please tell us how significant that role is, and what is it that is changing these roles when it comes to technology?
I will tell you more about technology and what personally I do in geology. Like, for example, with the advancement of drone technology, for example. So drone came about 10 years ago. And the big thing happened with the drone is now is GPS based. So if you fly a drone, it will stay in its location because there's a built-in GPS, and that helped a lot. You don't need really to like play with the drone. It will. So what we do in geology, for example, sometimes definitely we need to go to the field because what we study is rock, so we need to go after them.
To study in the field.
Yes. So, but sometimes these outcrops, I mean the rock exposures, are not accessible. So what to do now? We take the drones and we plan, like with different algorithms and softwares. We plan an area around that outcrop that we are interested in. So the drone gonna fly and take multiple hundreds, if not thousands, of pictures for that rock exposure. Okay. And there is between every photo we take, there is a big overlap between the two photos. And then we take these photos into a software.
Okay.
And then the software will try to mosaic all these photos. And remember, we do have a GPS, which means we have X and Y and Z as well. So we will produce a virtual outcrop, yet you have it in your laptop or your PC.
Even though you weren't able to reach it
exactly.
by hand itself. So this development in technology has eased
of course, yeah.
this process for you.
So now you can access this outcrop in a sunny day, in a rainy day.
With the same measurements?
With a high precision, yes. Okay. Yes. It's definitely like, we as geologists, we always encourage students to be in the field, because working in the field, it's not an easy job.
Even it's not easy, but it's not hard, but there is some challenge, I know for sure. If you're working in the field as a geologist, you're always overcoming in the challenge. Like in the previous episode, we'll talk about the challenge, how to overcome it, especially what is like something interesting you in the state of Kuwait, you want to go further research, especially the challenge for the geological here in Kuwait.
Many challenges. There are some which is related to industry.
Okay.
Like for example now. So we depend on oil and gas for as a main resource for Kuwait for energy, and worldwide of course for energy, for transportation, etc. So now what next? We need to work on alternative. Geology goes alongside with energy. Different natural resources that Earth provide to humanity, it goes with geology. So now alternatives would be like geothermal. Like Iceland is very famous of utilizing geothermal energy. What we mean by geothermal is as we go deeper in the ground, so pretty much every 1 kilometer we go down, the temperature will increase 1 Celsius.
And this was evident in Iceland, like you said?
Now in Iceland is even better than this. If you go 100 meters, you will increase, temperature will get increased by tens only within 100 meter depth.
Okay.
So they thought about, okay, what about like injecting water? We are getting above 100 Celsius, which is the boiling temperature. Then we are creating steam. You produce that steam, it will move turbines.
So it will act as a catalyst for these turbines?
Actually, no. Well, you will move the turbine and you will generate energy.
Okay.
By this movement, you will generate energy, which is electricity. Yes. It's like what we do in Kuwait here.
Okay.
We use gas, we increase temperature. Well, we fire the gas, we increase the temperature, and then we create a steam, and then the steam will move the turbine. So geothermal, it's a challenge in Kuwait. Nobody really looked at it. There is a debate, so it will require extra research on how feasible it is in Kuwait, for example.
So you are now doing the research for the geothermal, and what about your cooling?
No, I'm not doing it myself, but this is, I'm just giving an example of a challenge that we can target in the future.
Amazing. And this is like we think all the time, like this is the new generation of technologies for the era of geological. We didn't know about this kind of case. That's why we are investing you. We are with us here in the studio to know more about this kind.
Yeah.
It's the pleasure is us. So these kind of things are the new technologies, and you mentioned Iceland, one of the friendly countries. So is it like another different countries with different kind of, we call it phenomenal of like some of the geological?
Yeah, so geologically, Iceland, it's amazing because it's located exactly on the boundary between two different geological plates.
Okay.
So what's happening beneath Iceland is that the crust is moving away. Okay. And actually earlier today, there was an eruption, a volcanic eruption in southwest of Iceland. So it's always active tectonically, full of volcanoes.
And this is what makes it so beautiful, even for tourists, not only geologists.
Exactly, yeah.
Doctor, we're going to understand more and have you dive deeper into this topic and the trips you take, whether it be to Iceland or even around the region in the UAE and other places. But right after the break, stay with us.
We are back to our show again around Kuwait. Dear viewers watching us through the KTV2, we are continuing our conversation with our distinguished guest today, Dr. Mohammed Naghi. He's the assistant professor at the Kuwait University for the college with the major of geology. And also, Fajr, we spoke about different perspective in our conversation about how he's being interested in the subject. We talk about the friendly countries, Iceland, the challenges in the state of Kuwait, and how they are engaging with the students also.
And I think we learned so much when it comes to Iceland specifically, and how it's a geologist's dream, because there's a number of live experiments happening on a daily basis and a number of researchers doing different research there. However, for our next question, Dr. Mohammed, since Kuwait has a very rich history and like you said, the geological features play an important role to the findings and studies of geology in Kuwait. How do you integrate these historical findings or the historical context into your teaching and research?
So historically speaking, what made humanity get interested into geology is resources.
Okay.
So of course, as a human, we are always curious to understand, to have an answer why we have a mountain. But these are a luxurious type of questions. So the main question is, where can I find coal back in the time? How can I go and explore for oil?
Because these things were needed for survival.
Of course, exactly, because civilization, they need energy, and energy comes from natural resources mainly. So what opened, let's say, the interest of foreigners in Kuwait geologically was the discovery of oil in the mid 1800. So by the 1800, oil got discovered
Yes.
on economical scale in the US, and then the boom happened. So by the early 1900, oil got discovered in Iran.
Okay.
Exactly in 1908, that was the first oil field in southwest of Iran. And then the British, they got excited about the idea, and they said, okay, let's expand our exploration and the project. So they established the Anglo-Persian company, and then they tried to deal with the sheikh and emirs of the other side of the coast. And here where they sent the first geological surveyors to Kuwait. They came, they looked at the different type of outcrops, they measured the layers, and they went to Bahra, they went to Burgan area, where they also heard actually from the Kuwaitis themselves that there are oil seepage. So there was a small pond or lake of oil. People, they used to go and get what left over on the surface. So they did their survey around those areas, and so without those early geological exploration and survey, we couldn't really find oil in Kuwait. So the nice thing, I love history. Like when you love geology, definitely
You
need
have to be
love
into the history.
as well, because actually in geology is the history of Earth. So
Yes.
but I'm also interested in the history of civilization as well. So if you read about what really Sheikh Mubarak and Sheikh Ahmed Al-Jaber, they did back then, they were really smart. Like if you look at their tactics and the way they try to negotiate with the British, it was amazing. So after they approved the first survey, but then another group of people, they came also asking permission to do the survey. And now he was very smart. He said, okay, now we do have competitors, like two competition now. So I can raise my the price I'm asking for. And he played it very nice, and he gained more money for Kuwait, of course. And it was a good deal for Kuwait back then.
It's a good deal with Kuwait. See, like the history, the history is precious, to know more about the civilization with the people, and even more. So these kind of...
Not just that, Abdulaziz, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
Yeah, sure.
there is a point that I'm really interested to understand more about, and that being the islands in Kuwait and these different geographical places or spots in Kuwait. Do they differ when it comes...
Geologically?
Yes.
Not really. Well, like Bubiyan and Warba, if you've been there, it's all muddy.
Okay.
So we don't really have rocks, so it's only mud, and that's pretty much because to north of them we have Shatt al-Arab, so it's dumping all the sediments coming all the way from Turkey.
So it all goes down to the island.
So it's dumping these sediments, and that's why we have this area is mud. So, and now the question is why this land is high now. Could be tectonics. I didn't read anything about this in the literature. So Bubiyan and Warba is geologically different. Now we come to Failaka, which is the main island we have. It's a rocky island. So we do have, actually I took my student
Trip?
a trip, yeah, we did a trip to Failaka Island, and we looked at the different rocks on the beach. Like if you go to the south
Yes.
of Failaka, you will see a very nice beach rocks in that area. Now, in the literature, I haven't done research on those type of rocks, but I've read the literature, and the literature says they believe in all these rocks are an extension of what we have in Sabiya. So Sabiya was connected to Failaka at one time, and then because of the current, which is the anti-clockwise current within the Arabian Gulf, it did cut that piece of rock, and now we do have the Gulf, the Kuwaiti Bay, sorry.
So this is like about the islands, right?
And sorry if I can add something.
Yeah,
now,
sure.
if we go further south, the geology will get different because we are away from the mouth of the stream or the river where we
Yes.
have all these sediments. So in the south, where are the nice beaches, right?
Yes.
So there we will have more corals. We will have more carbonates. It's clear and crystal water, and it's so different type of animals can live there and grow and build their colonies, what we call the coral.
This is like, I am curious when we spoke about the Europe continent. So let's talk about Africa continent. Like you mentioned about the safari lives in the south, and like in the South Africa, the thing in the stones and the beaches and the lands are different, all like surface country. It's different about the other coast and about the continent.
Definitely, of course. Now, I haven't been to South Africa, but South Africa is well known for their diamond.
Okay.
Their world-class diamond minings. But the geology is definitely, like Africa is one of the oldest continents, like most of the rocks, very, very old rocks. And Arabia actually was connected to Africa.
To Africa before.
Yes, like
And Abdulaziz, you took us to Africa, and I think we went to the islands in Kuwait. But if you could tell us what international research or what international collaborations or partnerships have you been involved in to expand your studies and research?
Right. So being in academia, working as a scientist, you always need to get connected to different, well, it's the same community, the scientific community, but you have to always have to interact with them. Recently, like in the last month, I've attended a symposium in UAE. So I was a part of the technical committee where we reviewed all the abstracts who were participating in that video. Yes, it was over 2 days. It was really nice because we get to get connected to people from Europe, from the US, of course, from
the region itself.
From the region itself. So there is always some sort of collaboration with reviewing papers. Also comes from international journals and press. Hopefully now we do have something in the stream coming for next summer, inshallah. I can't say anything yet, nothing happened, but inshallah it's going to be a collaboration between myself and another professor in Sweden.
And also, when you mention about your colleague and even the research, how do you balance between academic and research? I know, like, especially in your field, you have to search always, and you have to also teach, and have to read. So how do you balance between the two things?
It's hard. There is no secret recipe, but it's hard. Because teaching takes a lot of effort, especially if you really teach. Like that's gonna take a lot of your energy. Like it will drain your energy. Teachers are not selfish, because what they do, they give. You know, they don't gain anything to improve themselves. They are trying always to improve their students.
Their experience, their thoughts.
Yes, exactly. So it's really draining mentally and like on every level. So it's it's a big challenge in how to balance it out between teaching and having your own time where you read and you write and you try to improve your...
And still, like you said, be able to share this knowledge you get from the readings and the journals and articles you read in the journals. But to also, what are some of the most common misconceptions when it comes to geology and Kuwait?
Like between students or?
Between students and
or in general?
Also in general, and how do you address them?
So I started telling you a little bit about that at the beginning. Like people look about geology by only rocks and minerals. Like even I remember myself when I wanted to study geology, like my friends, my family, really want to go to study rocks? Like why? But no, geology is not about rock. So this is
fascinating because you have even these scientific kits, you know, like their educational play, and you learn through them. But it's so fascinating. So to actually learn on ground and on site, and have that understanding of the history of the rock, like you said,
of course.
That by itself is something.
So actually, like, geology is teaching people how to read the rock itself, which means reading the history of Earth. So what we teach a student is the language of how rocks is speaking to us. So you need to study the different type of grains, the chemistry of it, the physics of it, to enables you just to wander in this amazing history of Earth.
Nice.
So it's not only rocks. It's way more than this.
And it's way more and more and more, and too many to talk deep and about this interesting topic. So dear viewers, we're gonna continue our We are back again to our show around Kuwait. We're still continuing our interesting conversation with Dr. Mohammed Naqi. He's already an assistant professor in Kuwait University for the geology department. Fajr spoke in between the breaks about different perspective.
Yeah.
And he mentioned like he used to have some research also about different continents also.
And some field trips in different locations and different students joining these field trips. So if you could give us some more elaborate overview to these field trips, whether it be in the region or around.
Right. So when I was a student like 20 years ago, we lacked the field trips.
Okay.
So there is a class where the Kuwait University, they take us to Oman to study geology in the field. But pretty much that was it, and a few trips in Kuwait. But when I became a professor in Kuwait University, I wanted to change this. I wanted to give student opportunities to be more out in the field. So when I came back, I tried to organize field trips with like in UAE. We did two trips to UAE in collaboration with Khalifa University.
Okay.
One of my colleagues back in the US, he got appointed there. So we invested in this type of relationship, and we did this field trip together. And it was amazing. So we did it before the Corona time.
There's like some similarities between the two countries when it comes to the geology?
Actually, no. Like UAE, well, the western part of it, yes, it's flat. But to the east, where it's closer to Oman, it's amazing. It's a huge mountains close to Fujairah and Dibba and Ras Al Khaimah. It's a beautiful area. Huge mountains. It reaches 2-kilometer high. So big mountains. So we did 2 field trips in UAE. And we did also, every year we do trips to Oman as well, to give students the access to rocks. Because if they don't see rocks, you can't learn geology from textbooks only.
You have to be discovered. And you mentioned Oman, Sultanate of Oman. I know Sultanate of Oman is like one of the destinations have different perspective when it comes to geology. So how do you see the experience in Oman?
So Oman is heaven for geologists. And I'm not saying this, it's the heaven for geology. From everywhere, from all corners of the globe, geologists and geoscientists, they come to Oman to visit Oman, because Oman is it's unique in its geology in terms of So the mountains in Oman, I don't know if you went to Oman, there is a huge series of mountains. They call them Al-Hajar Mountain. These mountains actually, they came all the way from the bottom of the ocean, what used to be ocean. So the crust of this ocean now, it's on top of the land. So, and this is a unique opportunity for geologists to study those type of rocks, because you cannot reach them because they are below the sea.
So that's a joy for all geologists like you said.
Yeah, because there are a lot of questions we don't know the answer, and those rocks, they do have the answer. So, and I've seen geologists, when I go to Oman, I've seen geologists from all over the globe.
The universe, yeah.
Yes.
And when it comes to some of the most rewarding aspects of being a geologist, what are they?
Loving the outdoor. I think you can't be a geologist without being outdoor. You should be able to go and to look. Like, if you are a good geologist, then you've seen a lot of rocks, because they will teach you. It's like looking at more and more books. Yeah. So being outdoor, I think it's important. I think being patient, because you are dealing with something that does not move, and if it moves, it will move on a scale of millions of years. So it's very hard to visualize the changes and everything else, in electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, and medicine. Things change on seconds, but in geology, it's not. So you really have to be that person who's willing to be very patient to understand these long-term processes.
And also in the state of Kuwait, back in the state of Kuwait, and in the brief, we'll talk about the oil sector.
Mm-hmm.
I know, this is playing a major role in Kuwait. I know the oil sector is the main concern and one of our incomes. So as a geologist, and I know some people want to be in the petrol sector, and you have to study geologists. How is it the links between petrol and also geology?
So in the oil industry, they divide the oil industry into 3 segments. Okay. So we call it the upstream, midstream, and downstream. Geologists, they fit in the upstream, where they discover oil and then they produce oil. And then as it goes downstream, where they refine the oil and they sell it and they transport it to different locations. So we as a geologist, we fit in the upstream. So the role of geologists in an oil industry is to locate where are the places or the structures that they hold or reserve oil and gas. We will look for what is the best method to produce them, how much are they, what type of oil are they, is it enough, can we invest in this area and drill, because drilling very costly. So you can't drill without being very certain that you have enough reserve down there that's worth investing. So this is our role in oil industry.
Oil sector.
Yes.
This is geology is interesting, Fajar. Every time we're learning something new.
And everything is related. Everything is
integrated.
Exactly. In that sense. And speaking of this integration, what's the importance of water resources?
Oh, you hit. See, Kuwait we don't have water, unfortunately. People back in the time, they used to depend on groundwater, but with the boom in oil and gas, we had the energy, we had the money to use the seawater instead of the groundwater. But this is a very costly process. So we can't really look for more resources for water, because all what we have is what we have now. So our role is to understand what we have better and how can we protect it and not to be affected by the different type of human activities that will pollute that type of water.
And even also, I know, like in geology, when you study, and you are teaching students, and even you're doing too much research, you're doing field trips, you're discovering. How do you be like still updated for the latest development and history happening for the geology sector? For sure, I know you have like certain like maybe institutions or associations, or maybe some of places you're always seeking for the new development. How do you still update it?
So being part of the international community by participating in different organizations. Like myself, I'm the advisor of the American Association of Petroleum Geologists.
Right.
It's a big organization. It's a worldwide organization. People as a geologist, they join this type of organization. So we get always emails, we get the publications of those organizations. We attend the conferences that these organizations organize. Exactly, yes. So being part with this community, and AAPG is one of them. We have the GSA, we have the GEO here, like locally, regionally, like within the Middle East. So being part of this, attending those type of conferences will keep you always up to date. And of course, you have to be always curious. You have to ask questions.
Curious always opens doors
Definitely.
to a number of valuable tools that you can use and utilize. And finally, Dr. Mohammed, we'd like to know what's your message, or how can you reach the public in helping them better understand and appreciate the importance of geology in our day-to-day lives?
So I just want to leave you with that geology is not about rocks, it's about natural resources. Without geology, you can't really find those natural resources. If you go back and read in the history of humanity, whenever you have a big jump in civilization, you will see the interference of geology in it. Like if you look in the Industrial Revolution, it was dependent on coal and the combustion engine. Without the coal, which is geology, were able to locate them, we couldn't have that type of revolution. And then if you look at when we had the oil boom, that was the source of energy which created electricity, and this led us to what we are today. So in the future, geologists will be able to provide us with the alternatives, because geologists mean natural resources.
Amazing. We learned too many good things today, Fajr.
Geology 101 today was highlighted in this very enlightening interview.
The good thing we always say all the time, Dr. Mohammed Naqi, good times run very fast.
True.
We didn't fill the time.
True.
Thank you so much for joining us. You want to say the last word to your students who's watching you today? What do you want to say to them in a brief? This is your camera.
I just want them to be students. I believe we lack students, because a student, they need to act as a student. They need to be looking for knowledge and willing to learn. I think if you only be that person, I think you will succeed. And I think Kuwait deserve from all of us to do our best just to carry on this legacy of what we call Kuwait, our home.
You really provided us with very, very much useful insights, and they gave us an insight also to the geological wonders of Kuwait. Thank you, Dr. Mohammed, for being our guest today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're speaking to Dr. Mohammed Naqi. He's assistant professor from Kuwait University Department of Geology. He already sharing with us about what he is interested in the field, about the challenges, and about the different aspects for how do you have to know more about to be still updated with the geology, and about the field trips, and even too many information about the region when it comes to the state of Kuwait, and even about the GCC countries. That's our episode for today, and hope you enjoyed our segment. See you next time. Have a great day.